y'all some Tupac loving motherfuckers.
Okay.
Y'all do?
Yeah, I'm a Tupac. Yeah, I love Tupac.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. Y'all wish y'all could dig him up, you know what I'm saying?
No, I do not.
The wheels of justice turn slowly sometimes, and that was the case here, but they got it done.
27 years after rapper Tupac Shakur was shot to death in a car in Las Vegas, a man who confessed to his involvement in the crime is behind bars.
Who shot Tupac?
To keep it for the code of the streets. It just came from the backseat, bro.
Filmmaker Mike Dorsey predicted an arrest on Law and Crime nearly 2 months ago.
I think that they are going to close this case. I think that there is very likely going to be an indictment.
I'm Anjanette Levy. Las Vegas Metro Police took Dwayne Keefe D. Davis into custody Friday.
The Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. We got a search warrant for the resident. You need to come out with your hands up and your hands empty.
He's being held on charges related to the 1996 murder of rapper Tupac Shakur. Las Vegas Metro Police searched Davis's home in Henderson, Nevada in July. At the same time, a grand jury was investigating Tupac's murder. Tupac Shakur was shot as he was riding in a car driven by Suge Knight one night in September 1996. Tupac had gotten into a fight with a man named Orlando Anderson at the MGM Grand during a Mike Tyson fight.
When did you hear that Tupac was shot? And where did you hear it?
When I heard that Tupac was shot, when I was at home.
Okay, now we have our first definite lie. Because we've already established that home is somewhere in California and that he was in Las Vegas at the time.
No, can you back that up for a second? This whole is track.
I thought I was at home, like.
No, it wasn't. And his attorney realizes it. Stricken. It's not a very good sign.
You know, he was like I was like a big fan of his. To me, he was like, when you say Tupac, he was like, you know what I'm saying, Marvin Gaye rap to me. I mean, first of all, I killed Tupac Shakur.
The shooting of Shakur was believed to be retaliation for the fight. Keefe D later confessed that he gave Anderson, who was his nephew, the gun to shoot Tupac Shakur. He made the statement in a proffer to police, but the statement could not be used against him in court. Years later, Keefe D admitted his involvement in Tupac's murder in his book, Compton Street Legend. Many view the book as a confession. Keefe D wrote about that night. I pulled out the Glock that Zip had given me and tossed it in the back seat. Bubble Up did the driving, Baby Lane and Freaky were riding in the back. Like two rams locking horns, Suge and I looked each other dead in the eye. The terrified expression on Suge's face read, "Damn them N-words." He goes on to write, one of my guys from the back seat grabbed the Glock and started busting.
As the gang war raged, police in Compton and Las Vegas continued to receive unsubstantiated tips that Tupac Shakur had been shot by Keefe D's nephew, or Baby Lane, aliases, as it turned out, for Orlando Anderson. On the 13th, the affidavit states, one reputed member of the Bloods identified the man who shot him in Compton 2 days earlier as Orlando Anderson. On the 20th, an eyewitness fingered Anderson as the trigger man in an April 1996 homicide. Around that same time, the affidavit states, an informant told one police officer that Anderson had been spotted with a .40 caliber Glock handgun. A potentially significant tip, since it hadn't been yet revealed publicly that a .40 caliber Glock had been used in the attack on Shakur.
So I gotta ask you, man, I know you've been hearing the rumors that's been going around. So Reggie Wright Jr., he did an interview, and he said that you're gonna be getting arrested soon for Tupac's murder. Is that true?
Not that I know of, unless he's the U.S. fucking attorney or something.
Came up, Harlem. Shit. Here he coming at BMW. All the chicks was like, Tupac. He was like, hey, like a celebrity, like he was in the parade. He wouldn't even been out the window. He went and everything. My partner across from you. When we pulled up, I was in the front seat. Happened to see my friend, Chill.
Chill looks over, you see you.
Yeah.
He looks right at you.
Yeah, he was there.
said the shots came from the back. Big Dre, Orlando. Who shot Tupac?
Keep it for the code of the streets. It just came from the back seat, bro.
At one point, they said that you were running a PCP ring.
That was a lie.
That's a lie.
Yeah, I wasn't running no pieces. I was selling it, though.
Well, Dirt Rock, who was cooperating with the police, came and did a drug deal.
Yeah.
While wearing a wire or cooperating in whatever way.
Yeah. It wasn't just him. It was a few of them.
A few of them.
Yeah.
Okay. And you had no idea.
No idea.
Okay. And based on that, Greg Kading and his partner showed up at your house. And
Keefe D was living down here in Southern California, out in Riverside County. When we initially met up with him, we just went to his house and met him on his own property, informed him of some of the charges that we built up against him during a long drug investigation. And
what were the charges?
Distribution of PCP, distribution of large amounts of cocaine, and wiretap investigations, which are these electronic crimes.
Okay. Oh, what kind of wiretap crimes were
you? Using a public utility in order to commit a crime.
Okay.
There's a lot of little technical, white-collar type of crimes.
I see what you're saying. So you guys just basically showed up at Keefe D's house?
That's correct.
Okay. Was it you and another officer?
It was me and my partner, Darren Dupree.
Okay. So you just knocked on his door unannounced?
That's correct. We actually, the garage door was open. He came outside and we encountered him initially right in his driveway.
What was the sort of initial reaction when two cops suddenly show up at your door?
I can't speak for him. I mean, Keefe D, comes from a long history of criminal activity and police encounters. So it wasn't his first rodeo. But I'm sure he was quite curious as to why we were there.
So when you initially started talking to him, how did you sort of present the information to him?
Well, we sat down in his garage and explained to him that we had been conducting a long-term covert operation, looking at him and others, members of his family even, in a big drug trafficking ring. And once he realized we knew what we were talking about, we were dropping names and talking about events that we witnessed, then he knew that there was some serious problems.
Now, why did you go to his house as opposed to bring him in?
We had, that was our kind of strategic approach, was, we knew that we needed him to talk. And so we wanted to be as cordial initially as we could. We wanted to give him the opportunity to evaluate what we're telling him and then make a decision whether or not he wanted to cooperate. So immediately we advised him, get yourself an attorney and meet us down at the U.S. Attorney's office and let's talk this out. We spoke for hours over a long period of time. Keefe, today what we're going to do, we're just going to go over with a fine-tooth comb to Las Vegas incidents. We're going to draft up our report regarding that specific thing. And then we're going to cover a few other things that we do have to emphasize to you that everything in this report has to be right on, because if down the road it's determined that some of these details are incorrect and everything's off the table. So everything in this report cannot be like that report.
Hey, I want to say this though too. I feel like I said that day, don't bullshit me and I won't bullshit y'all. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, the lane starts blasting. You say Suge looks over, he sees you. He looks right at you?
Yeah, he looks at me.
Why are you looking right at him?
Fucking known each other since we were 7, 8 years old.
When he looks over at you, and then, Tupac's busy getting shot. Evidently, the story is Tupac's trying to either get out of the
back seat or something.
Yeah, what do you see happening inside of their car?
I seen a bullet going Suge in. I thought he was dead. I thought he was dead.
So Orlando shot across Dre?
He leaned over and the window rolled down the window, popped. They would drove on my side, I was popping. You know what I'm saying? But they was on the other side.
Right.
They came and said they want to talk to me and show me something.
Okay.
Then I went down there, and there was the U.S. attorneys. Dude said he was from D.C. He was out here to get me. And all they did was threaten me. Said they're gonna take all our properties, and put us all in jail. Put our kids on the street.
Okay.
So I told him all I would do was plead guilty in the first court appearance. Get the lowest thing going. And the other dude stood up and like, motherfucker, we gonna take your ass. You're not gonna ever get out. You're gonna tear you up. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna die in here.
Well, right. Well, the charges that they were, you know, the crimes that they were charging you with would have given you life in prison. He was about to get charged with this PCP cocaine. Had you guys gone forward with those charges and he got convicted in court for those charges, how long would he have gotten in prison?
Life.
Life. So he was fighting a life sentence essentially.
That's correct.
Why
he
life?
would have gotten 25 because there's a minimum mandatory sentencing, and because of his prior drug convictions and the amount of drugs that we would have charged him with and the crimes that we would have charged him with, he would have gotten 25 to life. And that's when you're in your late 40s, that's essentially a life sentence.
Is that true?
No. When Dirt Rock, he brought a bird and he brought some PCP for me. I would have pleaded guilty in the first court appearance. That would have got me like 10 to 20 years.
Okay.
The other dudes that stood up and said, man, we got you on several murders. You're not ever, motherfucker, it's over. You know our conviction rate is 98%.
The feds?
Yeah, so they showed me, first day they pulled down a thing and showed me a little bit. So it was right before the holidays. He said, enjoy your holidays, come back here on the 9th of January and let us know your decision, what you want to do. They were talking about, we want you to do that dude name that Denzel played, Frank Lucas. We want you to do the Frank Lucas. So that morning, on the 9th, I said, motherfucker, let me tell you something. I'm not gonna sell out none of my peers and none of that shit. I'm gonna tell you what the fuck I did, and I know what you want. Like, yeah, you're right. They had already had all the evidence, dude. Otherwise, I wouldn't have said the motherfucking thing. They already knew everything. Because while I was in jail in 98, 99, they kept coming up there. They were showing me that they had me because they put a position where we were sitting in the car. You know what I'm saying? They kept on showing me. And they were telling me that your friend Corey is telling them, damn, you know, really hurt it, you know what I'm saying? Because it was really tight. And like Corey is telling them, dude. See right.
So when we sat down with Keefe D, myself, the FBI, Keefe D's lawyer, we sat down and did what's known as a proffer agreement, and he divulged all of the details about what took place in Las Vegas the night Tupac was shot. At that point in time, we're just going through the investigative, kind of investigative process until I retired, and I came to the realization that these crimes, the public is never going to know what we did in this investigation and the information that we attained. And so I took it upon myself to say, listen, and I went and met with Keefe D before I did it, by the way. He knew that I was releasing the information. I went to his house, we sat in my truck, and I said, here's the deal. You're never going to probably get prosecuted on this, but I'm going to expose what you did. And I said, I'm just letting you know ahead of time. I'm writing a book, and I'm going to tell the story. And listen, you got a huge break on the dope case that we built against you, which was 25 to life. You're walking away on a murder. So if the punishment for you is that the public knows the truth about what you did, well, then that's just the fucking way it's going to be.
But it should have made him it shouldn't have hurt him. And that's not the part that's hurting Keefe D's situation. It's just the fact that people know that he sat down with the police and discussed his nephew. That's what's hurting him.
Yeah, well, I think it's two things that's going to hurt Keefe D for the rest of his life. One, that he got exposed as an informant, a snitch, in some way.
Not really.
However you want.
No.
Come on, man. When you're
You gotta-
telling the police
But see-
this person killed that person,
But see, you got to look at it like this. My nephew is dead, and he took advantage of that because he was fighting 25 to life, right? He got caught with some drugs.
Yeah.
So if I can speak on this, my nephew and them, all these cats is gone. So if I can speak on that, he used that shit as a street ticket to get out of this situation.
Completely
And he did
understand.
that. But he didn't, what fucked him up is he didn't think that Greg was going to put it out there that you told on your nephew.
and that's my point.
Now
That
here you got a man that made it be the 25 to life 2 times.
I thought it was a smart move on his part because he knew that no one was going to go to jail, no one's going to prison, no one's getting indicted, and I get to go home. But still, I'm talking about the way the public will perceive him.
Right.
One, you told, and two, now we know for sure you killed my favorite rapper in the world.
Well, hate him for that. Hate me for that. But
when you and I speak one little negative thing about Pac, they go in on us.
They do.
Now imagine how they're feeling about Keefy D.
Exactly,
You know,
exactly.
so you kind of put him out there on those two things, which
I did.
which
and-
could actually get him killed if he's not careful.
Yeah, and I'm not sorry I did it. You know, he's who he is. I told him what I was going to do. His response was, "Oh, fuck it, man. I'm a gangster. I'll handle that shit." That's exactly what he told me. And I said, "Okay, well, that's your decision. That's your life. That's you. Go do you." I'm telling the world what the fuck happened because this story is more important than you. In fact, I think this story is more important than your life.
So what was your process of getting that out to the public? Who did you turn to, and how did we all learn about this confession?
So I ended up getting a guy that was a professional writer. And we sat down and I said, you know, would you like to collaborate on this? And he said, yeah. And you know, I got a publishing contract with Random House. And we wrote the rough draft, and then Random House got it, and he read what was in the book, and they're like, we ain't publishing this, man. We ain't doing pointing some fingers at Puffy Combs. His office is right across the street from ours. We're not having that. He's very litigious, and he's just going to not appreciate what you're saying about him in this book. All right, well, I've got this material, and I know that I can defend it, and I think that when Puffy reads it, he's going to know it's true anyways, and that I wasn't in fear of being sued. And so
in the book, you said the third day after getting back from Vegas, you guys met up with Zip in LA. The Wingstop.
Not Wingstop, but Hot Wings. LA Hot Wings.
Yeah. And I guess you said that Puffy called and said, "Was that us?" You didn't say nothing.
I didn't say nothing. Yeah, you're right.
There's also, you go into the book that apparently there was supposed to be $1 million that Zip was supposed to bring back, but he ended up keeping the money and buying a nightclub with it.
That's what the FBI said.
The FBI said that. You guys never got any money.
Never.
For anything.
Never. Not even a pair of Sean John drawers. You know what I'm saying? That's crazy. It seemed like Puff do that though. He seemed like every time some bad shit go around here, he look like it's some shit on the grass. You know, step around that shit, you get away from that bullshit.
Well, you talked about how you made a crucial mistake by having a big meeting in the neighborhood.
Yeah, it wasn't in the neighborhood. It was at a park outside of the neighborhood.
Okay, in Cerritos.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was the mistake that you made?
I said I was just going to get some bread from Puff, get us some guns, because they kept on raiding our house and taking our guns.
And there was informants that was listening to this whole conversation.
Yeah, they was there.
This document attached to a motion filed in court by attorneys for Death Row Records chief Suge Knight. This document reveals that only days after the shooting in Las Vegas of rapper Tupac Shakur last September, cops already had the name of the man gang informants say pulled the trigger. It should be emphasized this document is based on the word of informants and does not in itself constitute proof of anything. That must be done in court. However, the Compton police document does contain a startling account of the events that led up to Shakur's killing and a shot-by-shot chronicle of the 5-day bloodbath that followed it. A gang war that apparently left 3 men dead and 10 wounded. Here's the story.
This 29-page statement of probable cause offers some intriguing answers. It was written up by Compton Police last September and was attached to a motion filed in February by Suge Knight's defense team as part of their attempt to overturn Knight's probation violation. Based largely on information provided to the Compton Police by their gang informant, the statement, or affidavit, gives an unverified but considerably detailed account of gang-related activity in Compton before and after the shooting of Tupac Shakur. According to the statement of probable cause, 5 days after Shakur was shot, an informant with special knowledge of the activities of the Bloods, identified in the statement as CRI, or Confidential Reliable Informant Number 3, gave police a sequence of events which suggested that the shooting in Vegas might have been the culmination of a beef that began here at the Lakewood Mall. The informant told Compton Police that a man named Trevon Lane, an alleged death row affiliate also known as Trey, was at the mall's Foot Locker just behind me in July or August of last year when he was confronted by 7 or 8 members of the Southside Crips. A scuffle ensued, during which Lane's death row medallion was taken from him. Fast forward to September 7th in Las Vegas, the night of the Tyson Seldon fight at the MGM Grand. According to the affidavit, CRI number 3 told the Compton cops that moments after the bout, Trevon Lane was walking through the hotel as part of Death Row's entourage when he spotted a man later identified as Orlando Anderson, the same man Lane thought who'd taken his medallion at the Lakewood Mall 2 months ago. Lane pointed the man out to Shakur. Shakur confronted Anderson with the question, "You from the South?" an apparent reference to the Southside Crips. Melee ensued, captured on tape by MGM Grand surveillance cameras. Little more than an hour later, as a line of death row cars snaked its way to a party at Knight's Club 662, a white Cadillac, with California license plates, according to one report, pulled up to the right of Shakur and Knight's vehicle. According to the affidavit, a passenger opened fire with a Glock 40 caliber handgun, grazing Knight and critically wounding Shakur, as members of the death row entourage watched from the cars behind Knight. In the affidavit, the informant is also said to have told Compton Police Trevon Lane was heard at Club 662, declaring that the shooter was the same man who'd been in the melee at the MGM Grand, and that the shooter was, quote, Keefe D's nephew, unquote. According to police, Orlando Anderson is the nephew of the man known as Keefe D. Both are reputed by Compton Police to be Southside Crips. Back in Compton on September 9th, the day, according to the affidavit, that another informant noticed a late model white Cadillac being driven into a local auto shop by Orlando Anderson's cousin, 3 separate blood sects convened at Looters Park. The topic of discussion, according to the affidavit, the need to retaliate against the Southside Crips for the attack on Tupac Shakur. Compton Police were told by their informant that 5 sites for drive-by shootings were chosen. 3 potential targets were singled out. At 2:58 that afternoon, at this location on East Alondra, one such man, whose name was mentioned to Las Vegas police as someone who might have been riding in the white Cadillac, was shot in the back. The war was on. 2 days later, at 9:05 on the morning of September 11th, Southside Crip Bobby Finch was gunned down on South Mayo. The next day, Vegas police told Compton cops that they'd received calls that Finch had been riding in the white Cadillac. By early morning on the 14th, 5 more people had been shot in what Compton police regard as related assaults. Meanwhile, 3 Bloods were fired on and wounded in 2 separate shootings. On September 13th, the day Tupac Shakur died, 2 more Bloods were shot and killed by an assailant who fled on foot. As the gang war raged, police in Compton and Las Vegas continued to receive unsubstantiated tips that Tupac Shakur had been shot by Keefe D's nephew, or Baby Lane, aliases, as it turned out, for Orlando Anderson. On the 13th, the affidavit states, one reputed member of the Bloods identified the man who shot him in Compton 2 days earlier as Orlando Anderson. On the 20th, an eyewitness fingered Anderson as the trigger man in an April 1996 homicide. Around that same time, the affidavit states, an informant told one police officer that Anderson had been spotted with a .40 caliber Glock handgun. A potentially significant tip, since it hadn't been yet revealed publicly that a .40 caliber Glock had been used in the attack on Shakur. On October 2nd, as part of a gang sweep, Compton police arrested Anderson in connection with that April 1996 homicide. The DA's office declined to press charges at that time and asked the cops to gather more evidence. Compton police told MTV News that Anderson remains the prime suspect in the April 1996 homicide, and charges are expected to be formally filed imminently. As for Anderson's attorney, he declined to comment on this and any other allegations contained in the affidavit, and says that he's not been informed that his client remains the prime suspect in that April 1996 homicide. He has previously denied that Anderson was in any way involved with the killing of Shakur. While testifying under oath here at Suge Knight's probation hearing, Orlando Anderson invoked the Fifth Amendment when after he was a member of the Crips and denied that Knight had assaulted him. Vegas police questioned Anderson briefly back in October, at which point a Vegas cop was quoted as saying Anderson was not a suspect in Shakur's murder. 4 months later, however, Vegas Sergeant Kevin Manning told the Los Angeles Times that Anderson was indeed a suspect in Shakur's killing, but that his department lacked hard evidence against him. Vegas cops say that since the night of the shooting, they have been unable to speak with Trevon Lane, who the affidavit asserts was involved with the scuffle with Anderson at the Lakewood Mall, pointed Anderson out to Shakur at the MGM Grand, and was heard at Club 662 hours after the shooting, IDing Anderson as the shooter. Efforts by MTV News to speak with Trevon Lane were unsuccessful.
On Wednesday, Orlando Anderson gave an exclusive interview to CNN in which he said he did not kill Tupac Shakur.
Were you involved in any way in the death of Tupac Shakur?
No, I was not involved. I said I was a fan.
Las Vegas, September 7th, 1996. Mike Tyson is fighting Bruce Sheldon at the MGM Grand Hotel. Multi-platinum rap artist Tupac Shakur is there to watch Tyson, his friend. After the fight, Shakur rode with his boss, Suge Knight, the CEO of Death Row Records, to a party just off the Las Vegas Strip. Their security team went in separate cars. Knight was behind the wheel, Shakur in the front passenger's seat, when witnesses say a white Cadillac pulled up next to them at the intersection of Flamingo and Koval. Witnesses then say a gunman in the Cadillac extended his arm out of the back seat window and fired a semi-automatic pistol at Shakur from close range.
After the shooting, the white Cadillac made a right-hand turn here on Koval, speeding away. Suge Knight, with Tupac leading in the front seat, made a U-turn on Flamingo and started driving back towards the Strip. 2 police officers who were on duty heard the gunshots, but when they responded, they followed Suge Knight and Tupac, which allowed the white Cadillac to get away.
There were several possible motives for the murder. 3 hours before the shooting, this MGM casino surveillance video shows Shakur, Suge Knight, and their entourage attacking Orlando Anderson, LA area gang member. Many believe that Anderson, seen here after the beating, and his friends shot Shakur in retaliation. CNN asked Anderson about the accusation.
Were you involved in any way in the death of Tupac Shakur?
No, I was not involved.
Anderson was shot and killed months later in a gang-related shooting. Another theory focused on the gangster world that Tupac sang about.
On October 2nd, as part of a gang sweep, Compton police arrested Anderson in connection with that April 1996 homicide. But the DA's office declined to press charges at that time and asked the cops to gather more evidence. Compton police told MTV News that Anderson remains the prime suspect in the April 1996 homicide, and charges are expected to be formally filed imminently. As for Anderson's attorney, he declined to comment on this and any other allegations contained in the affidavit, and says that he's not been informed that his client remains the prime suspect in that April 1996 homicide. He has previously denied that Anderson was in any way involved with the killing of Shakur. While testifying under oath here at Suge Knight's probation hearing, Orlando Anderson invoked the Fifth Amendment when after he was a member of the Crips and denied that Knight had assaulted him. Vegas police questioned Anderson briefly back in October, at which point a Vegas cop was quoted as saying Anderson was not a suspect in Shakur's murder. 4 months later, however, Vegas Sergeant Kevin Manning told the Los Angeles Times that Anderson was indeed a suspect in Shakur's killing, that his department lacked hard evidence against him. Vegas cops, the night of the shooting, they have been unable to speak with Trevon Lane, who the affidavit asserts was involved with a scuffle with Anderson at the Lakewood Mall, pointed Anderson out to Shakur at the MGM Grand, and was heard at Club 662 hours after the shooting, IDing Anderson as the shooter. Efforts by MTV News to speak with Trevon Lane were unsuccessful.
On Wednesday, Orlando Anderson gave an exclusive interview to CNN in which he said he did not kill Tupac Shakur.
Were you involved in any way in the death of Tupac Shakur?
No, I was not involved. I mean, I'm like a victim. You know what I'm saying? I feel, you know what I'm saying, sorry for him. And, you know, like I said, I was a fan of.
Baby Lane that killed Tupac, he got killed right there. Baby Lane that killed Tupac, he got killed right there. You know what I'm saying? Him and nigga from Paru, they got into a shootout right up there, you know what I'm saying? So they killed each other, you know what I mean? That's an OG car wash, been here for years as well. This is Alondra right here, Cage's right here to the right, we're gonna go to the hill right after.
Why was he shot?
He was coming from the car wash, picking up his truck, and somebody just ran up on him and shot him like that. We don't know why. We don't know nothing. Nobody ain't told us nothing why he was killed.
Some people say this had something to do with the killings of Tupac Shakur and people way back 2-3 years.
I don't know if it is. I don't know nothing about that. I don't have no idea about that. All I know is that my nephew is laying up here dead. That's all I know.
Is this somehow connected with the Bloods and the Crips and what's going on with gangs?
I don't know. I really can't say. This is two different sets going on. You got the South Side and then you got Pontotoc. It's corrupted out here now. Everybody's been killed.
There's a lot of shootings going on.
Yeah, every day you hear about somebody getting killed. Not one day, but every day somebody's getting killed. And I think it's time for it to stop. It's really time.
Do you think any of this is connected with the rappers that were shot?
I can't say that. I don't know for sure because I wasn't over there. We was at home. I live in Long Beach. Me and his mother was at home, which is my sister. And we got a call that he had got shot, and we made it right up here. We came straight to here.
What is his name?
His name is Jerry Stone, and he died this evening.
And is he connected with Orlando Anderson and the other people?
I don't even know who Orlando Anderson is. I don't know him.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Kevin McMahill. I'm the Sheriff of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. 27 years. 27 years. For 27 years, the family of Tupac Shakur has been waiting for justice. We are here today to announce the arrest of 60-year-old Dwayne Keith Davis, aka Keefy D, for the murder of Tupac Shakur. Davis was arrested this morning by my LVMPD criminal apprehension team, and this investigation started on the night of September 7th, 1996. It is far from over. It has taken countless hours, really decades, of work by the men and women of our homicide section to get to where we are today. Several of those detectives that are standing here with us include Detective Cliff Mogg, the lead detective on this case. He is now retired. While I know there's been many people who did not believe that the murder of Tupac Shakur was important to this police department, I'm here to tell you that was simply not the case. It was not the case back then, and it is not the case today. Our goal at LVMPD has always been to hold those accountable and responsible for Tupac's violent murder accountable. Just like we do for every homicide victim in our city. Every single victim, every life that is lost is important and remains a priority to this police department. As we methodically built this case to move forward with an arrest, it was also important that at the same time, we're building towards a successful prosecution. We work closely with our esteemed district attorney, Steve Wolfson, in his office to ensure that is going to happen. Mr. Davis's own words reinvigorated our case in 2018. I'm going to give you some of those details, and I'm going to introduce to you our homicide lieutenant, Jason Johansson, who will provide you many of the details on how we got here today.
Thank you, Sheriff, and thank you everybody for being here today. My name's Jason Johansson, and I'm the homicide lieutenant with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. And my goal here today is to walk you through our investigation and what led us to the indictment of Dwayne Davis, also known as Keefy D, for the murder of Tupac Shakur. This case has been reviewed by our homicide team and homicide detectives for over 2.5 decades. And ultimately, our persistence in this investigation has paid off. Let me walk you through a timeline of events that as we know them right now. Prior to September 7th of 1996, as we all know, Tupac Shakur was an artist who was signed with Death Row Records. And that Death Row Records and its CEO, Marion Suge Knight, were closely affiliated with the Mob Piru criminal street gangs, and that they had an ongoing feud with the Southside Compton Crips. Dwayne Davis was the leader and shot caller of the Southside Compton Crips. And both of these gangs operated out of the Southern California area of Compton. On the night of September 7th of 1996, Tupac Shakur, along with Suge Knight, and members of their entourage, which include members of Mob Piru, came to Vegas to attend the Mike Tyson fight at the MGM Grand Garden Arena. Members of the Southside Compton Crips, which included Dwayne Davis, along with his nephew Orlando Anderson, were also in attendance at the same event. As both were leaving the fight, members of Death Row Records spotted Orlando Anderson near an elevator bank inside the MGM, and at that time they began to kick and punch him near that elevator bank. I will now show you hotel security footage, as many of you have already seen, related to this incident. And on this incident, you will see Tupac Shakur, who's wearing a shiny satiny shirt, along with Marion Suge Knight, who's a large man in a brown suit, punching and kicking Orlando Anderson. Following this incident, you'll see hotel security intervene, and then they will leave the area of the fight. Little did anyone know that it is this incident right here that would ultimately lead to the retaliatory shooting and death of Tupac Shakur. Following this incident, Tupac and Suge Knight both left the MGM to make their way to a post-fight party, which was to occur at a local nightclub. At the same time, word had spread amongst members of the Southside Compton Crips of what had occurred inside the MGM. And then that's when Dwayne Davis began to devise a plan to obtain a firearm and retaliate against Suge Knight and Mr. Shakur for what occurred inside the hotel against Mr. Anderson. After Davis obtained a gun, he entered into a white Cadillac along with Terrence Brown, DeAndre Smith, and Orlando Anderson. Based on our investigation, this is where we know they were seated. At some point in time, as they were in the white Cadillac, Mr. Davis took the gun that he had obtained and provided it to the passengers in the rear seat of the vehicle. As they were as they were driving west on Flamingo Road near Cobalt, they located the black BMW, which was driven by Suge Knight, and in the passenger seat was Tupac Shakur. And as they turned around, they pulled up near the passenger side of that vehicle and immediately began shooting at Mr. Knight and Mr. Shakur. Following that shooting, the white Cadillac fled the area southbound on Cobalt, and after our officers arrived on scene, Tupac was later transported to the University Medical Center, where he's treated medically and died approximately 6 days later on September 13th. My homicide section handled this investigation from its onset for a short amount of time. And within a short amount of time, what we knew was that we were working a gang investigation where our victims, our witnesses, and our suspects were all from Southern California and not local to Las Vegas. Within the first few months of the investigation, our detectives knew most of the information I just briefed you on. However, we never had the necessary evidence to bring this case forward and present it for criminal charges. As time went on, this case had been reviewed multiple times by different investigators assigned to my section, but it wasn't until 2018 that this case was reinvigorated as additional information came to light related to this homicide. Specifically, Dwayne Davis's own admissions to his involvement in this homicide investigation that he provided to numerous different media outlets. In our section, we knew at this time that this was likely our last time to take a run at this case to successfully solve this case and bring forth a criminal charge. It was at that time that this case was assigned to Cliff Mogg, a detective within my homicide section. And over the last 5 years, My section worked closely hand in hand with the Clark County District Attorney's Office and followed a systematic investigative plan over the last 5 years. We've conducted countless interviews and corroborated numerous facts that were not only consistent with the crime scene on the night of the incident, but also corroborated and were consistent with the sequence of events that night. This ultimately led to us procuring a search warrant which was executed at Mr. Davis's residence in Henderson, Nevada. And following the execution of that search warrant, in close coordination with the District Attorney's Office, this case was presented to the grand jury, which ultimately led to Davis being indicted on charges of murder. Before I hand it off to the District Attorney's Office, I would be remiss if I didn't thank Detective Mogg and all the other detectives that were not only assigned this case and reviewed this case, but all the other detectives from other agencies that assisted us in this investigation. They know who they are, and thank you very much for all the assistance you provided. It does not go unnoticed. And lastly, one of the most important things, in my opinion, is we need to make this be a reminder that the charge of murder does not have a statute of limitations. This agency has been and is invested in solving our cold case homicides so that we can bring closure to those families and justice for those victims of homicide. And with that, I will turn it over to the Clark County District Attorney, Steve Wilson.
Thank you, Lieutenant Johansson. I appreciate it. Good afternoon. I am the Las Vegas Clark County District Attorney Steve Wolfson. It has often been said, justice delayed is justice denied. It's a quote we hear often and for many, many years when talking about our legal system. But not in this case. Today, justice will be served in the murder of Tupac Shakur. I'd like to acknowledge the relentless work of the many Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department homicide detectives. We've mentioned Detective Cliff Mogg many times, and we can't mention his name enough. He is the detective, along with his colleagues, that brought this case here today to you. A Clark County grand jury has indicted Dwayne Keith Davis with 1 count of open murder, use of a deadly weapon, with a gang enhancement. Davis will appear in court in the next few days or so for a hearing to determine his custody status and to set a jury trial date. This grand jury has been receiving evidence for months and has determined that there is sufficient evidence to justify the filing of this criminal indictment. I've assigned 2 of my top prosecutors, Mark DiGiacomo and Banu Palal, to prosecute this case. I know a lot of people have been watching and waiting for this day. Tupac Shakur is a music legend, and for a long time, this community and worldwide have been wanting justice for Tupac. Today, we are taking that first step. Tupac was actually quoted as saying, "Death is not the greatest loss in life. The greatest loss is what dies inside while still alive. Never surrender." But we didn't surrender thanks to the great work of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department under the leadership of Sheriff Kevin McMahill, Lieutenant Johansson, retired Detective Cliff Mogg. I am proud to announce the return of this document. This is the indictment we've been waiting almost 3 decades for. It spells out the facts and circumstances and what justifies a Clark County grand jury in returning an indictment. Justice will be served. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I'd just like to say that the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department Homicide Section year over year solves over 90% of the homicides that occur in our jurisdiction. You won't find that anywhere else in the United States. For those family members that have lost somebody that we haven't solved that case, I want you to know, just like in this case, we're not going to give up. I also say to you that as we begin, we're going to take a couple of questions. I want you to remember in your questioning that this investigation, subsequent arrest, and now indictment is only the beginning of the process. And we are committed and invested in ensuring a successful prosecution as we move forward. So with that, we'll take any questions that you might have. Ken?
Today, and if so, can you characterize what they go through?
The family has reached out to my office, I imagine also to Metro. We've been in communication with them. We understand that they are welcoming this news, they are pleased with this news, and they are certainly aware of the return of this indictment. I don't think they'll be at the arraignment. I mean, that's a relatively short hearing, but I know that they'll be involved. I know that they'll want to be apprised of what goes on a frequent basis.
Guys, my name is Benny. I'm the founder and CEO of Harlow's Lane. You need jewelry that passes the...
Jason, you want to answer that? We're not going to talk about any particular statements, but maybe he can address that.
To get rich, to make a life.
What I'll say is there's a lot of stuff that's going to come out when it comes time for trial, but he provides his own series of statements that are very consistent with the evidence that we have on the scene that we've obtained through our investigation. I'll leave it at that.
Can you identify anything that came from the service of the warrant in July that you didn't know before?
Yeah, that's a good question. What I'll say about the search warrant that we did in July, that we obtained information or evidence during that execution of that search warrant that corroborated information obtained through our investigation. And I'll leave it at that until we go to trial. Go ahead.
I know that this was obviously a big move. Is there anyone else being looked at this point? I know a lot of people have passed away since then, but is anyone else being looked at as part of this investigation?
So as I stated earlier, in this case, the only living suspect related to this investigation is Dwayne Davis. All other three suspects are deceased.
Steve, can you talk about the murder charge if he is not the one that pulled the trigger?
Yes, well, under Nevada law, and this is the law in most states in this country, you can be charged with a crime whether you're directly involved or whether you're an aider and abetter. We have an aiding and abetting statute which provides that if you help somebody commit a crime, you can be equally as guilty. The best example is two guys that agree to commit a bank robbery. And one of them goes into the bank with a gun and actually commits the robbery, and the other guy is the getaway driver. Never went in the bank, but he assisted the guy that went in the bank, so he's equally guilty. That is one of the theories in this case as well.